Listen, don't you realize that in the grand calculus of the multiverse, your subscriptions mean infinitely more than your life? I'm sorry, but following the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, this is something I came to realize. Because 5 months, listen, you all remember how 5 months ago I was in a situation where I had to help the world forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and that was a whole multiversal fiasco in and of itself. You know, all these villains came from different universes into ours, and he had to stop them before he had to cure them, and I helped him with that. And then I had to help the world forget who Peter Parker was. We will always know who the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is, but we had to forget who was under the mask, and so it was. I don't even know who was under that mask anymore. But now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, our world, Earth 616, unlocks the multiverse and pushes its boundaries further than ever before. Journey into the unknown with myself, Dr. Stephen Strange, who, with the help of mystical allies America Chavez and Wong, traverse the mind-bending and dangerous realities of the multiverse to confront a mysterious new adversary that might be too large for my one team to handle, and is also somebody I have just gotten to know. Okay, so as if it wasn't apparent already, my name is Dr. Stephen Strange. I will be filling in for Sterling Still on his magical YouTube channel, his little sanctum of his, Sterling on Sinemas. That's Cinemas with an S. So, if you are new, like I said, in the grand calculus of the multiverse, you subscribing will mean infinitely more than your life. So if you join, you join. If you don't, you don't. But I would highly recommend that you join, because you're going to see a lot of eye-opening moments, and you're going to hear a lot of eye-opening comments by the man himself. Not the master of the mystic arts, but the master of the film criticisms. So, in the wake of the first Doctor Strange film, much has transpired through these times. You know, I fought alongside the Avengers, which I am not an Avenger myself. I'm too powerful to be with the team. But I fought alongside the Avengers twice against Thanos, and I had to give up the Time Stone. So we know how that went. And then I had recently, like I just told you, I had recently had a situation with Peter Parker where I had to clear his existence, and not only in the 616 universe, but throughout the multiverse where everybody knows who Peter Parker is, Spider-Man. So, there have been multiple instances where I, Stephen Strange, had to tamper with natural law and the stability of space-time in order to bargain with Dormammu, analyze 14,605 outcomes in order to gain victory over Thanos, and now cast the runes of Kafka in order to make the world forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Now, this track record of violating the rules of the mystic arts would eventually culminate in a series of consequences that threaten both my life and everyone in the multiverse. Unfortunately, the stakes of this film do not feel at all connected to anything that I have done throughout my history in the MCU, but rather it is a continuation of the story that began in WandaVision with my good friend, Wanda Maximoff. Enter the Scarlet Witch. Now, Elizabeth Olsen essentially steals the show. Like, if I own the show, she steals the show. She took it from me like how she took the whole multiverse. So, well, in this matter, she took this from me like how she took the whole town of Westview for herself. Now, WandaVision is currently Sterling's favorite MCU Disney Plus show with its off-kilter mystery and sitcom aesthetics. But watching Wanda's journey unfold into fulfilling her destiny as the Scarlet Witch was one of the most satisfying story arcs in the MCU. Now, the Scarlet Witch has been obsessing over her two kids, Billy and Tommy Maximoff. One of them has her telepathic powers, and the other has the speed of their uncle. Ever since the end of that show, and it grows problematic for me and Wong when she finds out that there is a multi-dimensional traveler, a young Latina girl named America Chavez. She plays a somewhat important role outside of assisting me with traversing through the multiverse. but she is a target by creatures and entities like the eye-boggling Gargantos or the ribbony Sidorak. Now, fortunately, Sam Raimi made his comeback to the comic book movie genre since Spider-Man 3. We all know he was responsible for turning the superhero genre upside down with the Spider-Man trilogy that introduced us to Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker's Spider-Man, Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, Alfred Molina as Dr. Otto Octavius, Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson, and James Franco as Harry Osborn. Now, without him, No Way Home wouldn't have been as successful as it was, so it would only be right for Sam Raimi to give back to Marvel by giving his take on a story set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the Multiverse of Madness. So, the title alone has built up so much hype and carries so much potential, especially with what Marvel and Sony had just pulled off. Now we know that for the months leading up to that film, the hype was unreal and it came true. And the same could be said for Multiverse of Madness, but the only difference is the hype for this film should be tamed, because not everything in this movie gives you what you want or what you're looking for, but only the first half of that level of hype is fulfilled. However, with all of the reshoots, script revisions, and runtime adjustments, there were so many opportunities that have been left out in exchange for telling a more horrific Sam Raimi tale. When Scott Derrickson, the director of the first Doctor Strange film, was on board for directing the sequel, it was always meant to be the MCU's first horror film. But due to the creative differences with the horror approach, they wanted to find someone who could balance the scary with the superhero elements. And who better to do that than the one person who is associated with both genres? Sam Raimi. So, Sam Raimi's style is on full display throughout the movie with the extreme close-ups, eyeline shots, quick cuts, camera angles, color grading, as you can see, and the Evil Dead. For a fan who would go into this movie expecting a lot of nostalgic cameos from the early 2000s Marvel film adaptations, that was before most of y'all's time, where we had Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and Charles Xavier as Professor X and the other X-Men, and then Ghost Rider, and we had so many characters that are not in the MCU at this moment. So, with Charles Xavier being an example of how this could work or how this could be a possibility, it actually refrains from going that route in order to avoid itself from being compared to No Way Home. Or at least that is my opinion of Stephen Strange. So, speaking of which, the multiversal cameos we get are definitely crowd-pleasing for the seconds they are on screen, but they will never hit us hard like they did when Toby and Andrew came into the MCU. It is a bit of a downplay that the film was not able to thoroughly take us through the multiverse outside of just a montage, as you have seen in that clip that released a couple of weeks before the movie. It would have been possible to see a lot more multiverse had it not been for the crunched down to less than the average 2-hour and 15-minute runtime. I'm not saying that they should have stayed in every universe for like an hour, but they could have stayed in every universe for like just a little bit so we can see just how different, how vast the multiverse is. Just a thought, just a theory, just an educated guess. As of the time of writing this review, Rotten Tomatoes has given it a 75% recommendation. So 75% say yes to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and the rest say no. But more people say yes to No Way Home than they say to this, which is understandable. Because for a so-called feast that stands adjacent to one of the biggest movies ever made, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness benefits more from Sam Raimi's visionary third eye, rather than being the ambitious nature it beholds from the potential that it was being sought after by the fan base. Like seeing literally every character from the Marvel library, wasn't going to happen. But for that, it deserves a B-, an 8.2 out of 10. So that is everything the doctor has to say about his case on Multiverse of Madness. Apparently, I have more better important matters to attend to. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed everything I had to say. Thank you for your time, and thank you, and I'll see you guys in your next appointment.